Welcome to yet another episode of BW People HR Voices Season 3. As you know, every week we get a special guest for you who are industry veterans, and they talk about the various conversations happening in the HR domain. And today we have with us Mr. Prashant Khullar, Group Chief Human Resources Officer, BLS International. Mr. Khullar, thank you for joining us today on this podcast. Welcome to this conversation.
It's a pleasure to be here, Rahul. Thank you so much for having me here.
Thank you, Mr. Kuller. So we are focusing on the culture of organizations. Basically that is the moot point of this conversation. Let me start my first question as a CHRO, as a group CHRO of a large company. Give me your expert perspective on how can organizations move beyond mission statements to genuinely create a culture that resonates with employees.
Rahul, thank you. And I'll give you, the example of what we are doing in our organization at the moment. So BLS International, as a company, we're in a very rapid growth phase. Okay, over the last 4 to 5 months, we've acquired quite a few companies, not just in India, but actually overseas. One company in Turkey, one company in Dubai. In India, we've launched a new company called BLS Sports. These are all subsidiaries. And on top of that, we are spread across 70 countries from where we operate in multiple businesses: visa, consular services, citizenship services. We're also in banking correspondence as a group. So what becomes important is a common thread, which really binds everyone together. Earlier, my challenges used to be, just within one organization. Now it's about multiple organizations. Uh, Even if we're not speaking the same language because of the nature of the business, do we understand the same language? So for us, what's become important is at this point of time to become an even greater listening organization. Okay, that's the number one. And how do you ensure that happens more than any typical surveys or tools that one has been using for years and years, or creating listening posts inside the organization? For us, it's about connection with people. We talk a lot about remote. We talk a lot about hybrid. We have to operate keeping in mind that our people are spread across the world. And you're not going to get a chance to see each other face to face more often than not. So for us, having face to face, when I say face to face, including virtual conversations like these, become very important. More than picking up the phone, wherever we get the opportunity, we'd like to connect virtually where we can at least see each other. Number one. Okay. The second part is we allow people to freely express themselves. Okay, where we don't want people to hold back something that, whether it's an idea, whether it's feedback, or whether it's just sometimes letting you know how one is feeling. So from that perspective, we're able to really understand people's needs, both at a work as well as a personal level. Communication becomes key in such times, but what's more important for us is people feel a deeper sense of purpose. So one is connection. More important than connection is a deeper sense of purpose, that uh, the work that I'm doing today, first, is it aligned with the goals that I've set for myself in life? Is it aligned with the purpose that I see for myself in life? So at every level in the organization today, we're helping people connect their purpose. If not, we're helping people identify opportunities within the organization where they feel that the work is closest to their deeper sense of purpose. The other thing is, we, and I'm very happy to share this, as leaders, we're very open to feedback, where we allow ourselves to be vulnerable. We first, let ourselves feel what we feel. And it's not that one always needs to put a brave face up. If I'm not okay about something, it's all right. I'm not okay. And talk to it about people, talk to your own teams about it, and let them know that how your work is important. And good work, how's that go to how's that going to make me feel, how's that going to make the leadership operate better. So that's what I have, a few thoughts to start with today in terms of talking about building our culture.
Right. No, I think it's important because in many organizations, we have seen that HR, of course, you have a very robust HR, but the way you explained it, we don't necessarily see that happening in many organizations. So, what is the importance of constant learning when it comes to being a HR leader? What is your advice to HR leaders? How do they stay updated? How do they stay in tune with the emotions of their employees? What are the best practices they can do to ensure that they are on the same page and the pulse of the company?
Right. Rahul, the first thing that comes to my mind when you say that is, I don't think there's typical one particular thing that may work for everyone. Okay. The way I approach it, let me tell you, is today there is so much feedback available. Today there are so many tools available. Not just that, so many options, learnings, best practices available. The way I personally look at it is, uh, first, aligning my own personal values with that of the organization values, and try and reach a common point that both of us are going to benefit if this is in place. And then I try to look for options that fit into these common set of values. Okay. Uh, what's important over here is not to get carried away by any best practice. Just because it's working for someone, it's largely likely to work for me. But if I do have to share, how can leaders keep themselves more equipped with what's happening? First, uh, try and introduce something like reverse mentoring. Okay, that's one thing I take very seriously. Now with about 26 years of experience, a lot of what one has learned, let's say in the last decade, has come through wisdom, and not so much through books or notes and stuff. I think the first learning point I see is learning from people's individual experiences, from their successes, from their mistakes. And that happens when you connect. So sometimes I pick up the phone, speak to another CHRO friend, or someone who's leading business, and I ask them that, how's the week been for you? What are things that you feel really proud of what you accomplished over the last week, or maybe a little longer? And for me, that becomes the first learning point, that what's happening around the world, number one. Number two, uh, at a personal level, I'm an avid reader. Okay. But then one has to realize that you've got very limited time. So I've actually, for this year, chalked out that these are the, 8 to 10 books that I want to read. So it's not random. It's aligned to what I want to do, what's going to help me, and do that. Third, as an organization, we partner with some of the best LMS, around the world. One example is LinkedIn Learning, where we drive every employee to make sure that on a weekly basis they're completing, certain number of programs for their own development. I try and do the same. Wherein I was talking to you a little earlier, my travel time, which is a little longer today than what it used to be in my previous assignments, uh, beg your pardon, how do I make most of that? And the good thing today is that there's so many podcasts, short modules, which you can just listen to, on your way. Uh, a specific example, what I do is, sometimes, as a group of leaders or as a team, when you're learning something together, it makes a huge difference. Today, you could be doing something, I could be doing something, and a third person could be doing, something else. But when the three of us are doing the same thing, that learning becomes a far greater experience. So in our organization also, what we're trying to do is encourage a culture where people are learning something together at the same time, and they all benefit through discussions, etc. Lastly, one has to figure out what really do they want to do and what works best for themselves.
Right. With the coming of new age entrepreneurs, we have seen that the hustle culture is also being celebrated. And when we say, you know, long working hours, and some people even big names, I mean, take that name, of course, they make a mockery of the work-life balance. They say there's nothing like that. When you hear very responsible people making such statements as a group CHRO, I mean, how do you see it?
See, the way I see it is, for me, everything goes back to organization values. And it's so important to first set the right set of organization values. And then, as leaders, first act on it yourself and then get the team too. But if you've not designed your values carefully, your values should be the fuel for uh, where you want to be. Okay. And why they're important is because it's sustainable. Okay, overnight success, sometimes you may enjoy it for a couple of days, but then if you didn't reach where you did as an organization the right way, you're not going to be able to sustain it. I think that's a thought I always first keep in mind. Second, um, I think everybody has their own opinion, all right, and very difficult to comment on what's right, what's not. For me, the most important thing is ears to the ground. Okay, whether it was 30 years ago, whether it's today, people build organizations. It's people who build companies and not just a set of few leaders. Okay, what is culture? Culture is common behavior. I look at culture as, what are you doing when no one's looking? Okay, at a larger scale, with so many more people in the company, I always keep it in mind that it's focus on quality. Okay, that the output of your work, there are people in our company and we let them decide. Whilst there's a certain set of guidelines around which we all operate, uh, everyone chooses their own timeline. One, the nature of the fact that we are spread across so many countries. um, we set boundaries clearly, number one. All right, we set timelines, targets clearly, and then we let people deliver it. We let people know that, okay, you decide how you want to do it. And more often than not, our employees participate in setting deadlines. I've not seen any of our leaders say that this has to be done by tomorrow. Okay, unless and until the world is about to collapse, people set their own deadlines. Now, after that, if somebody chooses to work 20 hours or somebody chooses to work 100 hours, why should one care if quality is being delivered? At the same time, people are happy about what they're doing. So that joy is very important. Sometimes I get joy by working 100 hours a week. Sometimes I get joy by working 10 hours a week. Is the work making you happy? Is the work engaging enough? So
Yeah.
our focus is more on engagement, not just with the organization, but with actual work that you do, where more time we spend in helping people understand the impact of their work on the larger success of the organization. And trust me, if you've got that right, you really don't have to worry too much about how much people are working on, how many hours are working. Let people decide. I think the kind of team I work with, they're much more tech savvy. They're smarter in their own areas. So if I took 20 hours to do something and someone can do that in 3 hours, let me see how let me see how I can learn from how they do it and try and do that myself. So
Right.
that's how we need to.
Essentially, yes, I think we cannot have a one size fits all approach in this. That's what essentially you mean, right? And we have to be very conscious of this fact. Which brings me to the my next question around We talk about building culture building initiatives, but what metrics should we look at to measure the success, whether these initiatives are really delivering? How do you look at it?
Okay, Rahul, I think that's a very powerful question. And let me answer that, trying to move away from typically what people are used to. There are a lot of people metrics, which have been used, and let me tell you, they're very effective. Okay. Again, I go back to what works for you or what works for someone may not work for you. Okay, so few metrics that at a large scale in a company like ours, which I am focusing on today, other than some of the basic dashboards which come, which basically are just trying to give you a sense of the health of the organization, we've tried to move a little beyond that. Number one, I'm trying to measure um, the success of our relationships. Now, I don't know if you heard that before, or not, but uh, when in times like these, your people are working from different parts of the world, or hybrid or remote, um, there's a very strong focus in our company on building deep relationships. Okay. Where people are able to connect at a certain level of understanding, to understand that it's the larger cause, that we're all there. We're all
Right.
actually on the same team. So small little issues which come up, how can they be ironed out? And I measured the success of relationships by seeing how many cross-functional projects are happening in the organization, how many people from different parts of the organization are coming together to work on something similar, and how often are people nominated for these kind of projects. Second,
Right.
let's say, a, if it's a typical HR process, I look at the success at, is it something which the HR team and I are driving, or is it something which is now owned by functions on their own? And I'll give you an example. We recently launched development centers in the organization where everyone around the world is taking these on. Now, with any
Right.
development center, the first reaction is why. Second is why me. Third, what's in it for me? Okay. Um, so we help people, understand. Um, First, trying to help people understand that, listen, look at this as developmental. This is not threat. This is not related to any performance appraisal or something. This is just something we're looking at, building a talent pipeline in the company. Uh, the way it happened, uh, today, people, if because of lack of time or sometimes attention, were not able to do it, they've come back to us and told us, and at the senior most levels, that we're very interested in this. Can you just give us a little more time? Okay. Now, that happened because of a stronger relationship. The same thing if one was communicated to that this has to be done. And if you don't do this, these are the repercussions. Nobody's really going to be interested. And it's just something which is a tick in the box and you're trying to do. So our approach, number one, is to relationship building and measuring that. Number two is, again, something that we're measuring is, is more of wellness. Okay. And when I say wellness, it's not, how often are people falling sick or taking leaves. For us, wellness is really more about how often uh, are you seeing people just enjoy what they do? When I'm moving around the organization, now data can give me a certain picture, but our leaders, our uh, people in our people function, HR, uh, we tend to move around and actually try and figure out how many people are smiling, how many people are enjoying what they're doing, and then we get together and see that through our own sensing and looking at people across functions, this is what we see happening. We then map that to typical survey results that happen in an organization. We map that to all the other analytics we have in the company, and then try and figure out the picture where we are. And more importantly, I think the connect we're trying to build with every person in the company today is if it's something good, come and tell us about it. If it's something which is not so good, come and tell us about it. And that
Right.
culture, I think, is really working for us where don't be defensive. It's okay to speak and don't take anything personally.
Right. I have a small announcement. Pardon me, the name is Ruhail instead of Rahul. So just this bit. So we will edit the earlier parts that I just noticed. I just got a message, so I was not looking at
I'm
it.
so sorry,
No,
Ruhail.
no worry. That's not a problem. I mean, I just wanted to ensure that, so we'll edit
Thank
this bit. And,
Sure.
you know, since you are part of a large organization that has footprints across geographies, in such a situation, remote work, hybrid work models become very prevalent. And how do you ensure that you maintain a very cohesive culture that aligns across geographies? Is that challenging? How do you manage that?
Your question, is it challenging? You bet it's challenging. Okay, because of the geographical spread and time zones we work. Uh, and what we've been able to do well is first collectively set certain boundaries, okay, which work for everyone. So these kind of boundaries don't come top down. Neither do they come driven from the headquarters. They come from everyone together. Okay, so and I'll give you an example. My my connect with our regional teams, the regional operations head or regional HR head, let's say sitting in USA. All right, that's a very important region for us. So we get USA, we get Latin America, we get Canada teams to join in, and the time difference, is huge. So what we've tried to figure out is by speaking together, what's the time that works for everyone. All right. So it may be a little early morning for them, whereas it may be a little late night for us. But we figure that out where everyone can get on the screen. Everyone can see each other, whether it's a good morning, whether it's a good evening, or whether it's a good night. Okay. But those boundaries have been set by people. Okay. We've tried to be a little more flexible over here, given that so widely spread, not everything becomes policy. We're very mindful of that let there be flexibility in the system where people have the opportunity uh, to create dynamic change. Uh, the moment you start putting everything black and white on paper, it becomes very difficult to then monitor because even if somebody thinks differently, they hold back. If this is what the company policy says, well, I might as well adapt to it. We try and keep those things, especially when it comes to boundaries, flexible. That's number one. Second, I think as part of our work culture, what we recently did is we have certain values. We've co-created our work culture as recent as just a couple of months back. Now, there are a certain set of core values in the company. We've kept our core values intact. Okay. Because I don't think it makes sense changing your core values every now and then. But what we did is we got everyone together. All right. And we took people's ideas that how do we translate these core values into the organization work culture that we want it to be. So each core value today doesn't talk about a definition. It talks about a specific behavior, which we call our work culture. So if you have 6 core values, there are 18 subpoints, and those subpoints, okay, are the work culture of the organization, which has been co-created. And that
Right.
not only becomes, as boundary or a set of boundaries, but that becomes a sheer principle on which we all operate, applicable to everyone in the organization. And these are very, very specific behaviors. These are not motherhood statements that, all right, what do I do with it? So it's something that my submission officer can do. It's something which the head of the function, head of the department can do. So that's number one. Number two, uh, I think keeping the culture and the remoteness together is wherever given an opportunity, even if it's the shortest of call, try and use a tool like this, where you can see each other, even if a discussion that can be done over the phone, and I'm talking about, more across the globe, uh, even 2 to 3 minute conversations that I have with people, I try and do it virtually, where they get to see me, I get to see them. Uh, I think what that's done for us is built a certain level of trust. The most important thing in your question, Rohel, is building trust and nurturing that trust where um, everyone feels that they matter. Everyone feels their work is important, whilst operating within a set of co-created boundaries.
Right. Absolutely. And I have my two questions for the day. But before I move on to this, a small announcement that we are doing our People Tech Future Summit and Awards on the 19th and 20th of March at the Leela, New Delhi. And it's going to be one forum where all these conversations will come together alongside the tech and the human interface. Let me, before I conclude this podcast, I have two quick questions. One is you mentioned about revisiting the culture, and you said that your culture is as fresh as 2 months back. How often should CHROs relook at the culture of the organization? Is there a lifespan to a culture that we should look at?
Uh, Good question. Um, Ruhail, I think, and very frankly, I'll tell you the first thing that comes in my mind. You cannot have a defined timeline. Uh, I think a culture is built on a foundation of a lot of pillars. Okay, starting with where are we, where do we want to be? Okay, if we're clear about that, it will help build the kind of culture we want to be. Second, listening, listening, listening. What are people seeing today? Uh, what are they understanding, and what do they have to say? That is going to be very important as a very strong pillar of the foundation that you're trying to build. Um, Third is what's important to everyone in the company collectively. So, for example, I said and I repeat relationships, that whatever culture we're trying to set in the organization, um, is it a reflection of the language people are speaking? You can't have a certain set of guidelines displayed somewhere, uh, but everybody else is behaving in a certain manner. You might as well just, write down how people are behaving. Good, bad, ugly,
Right.
doesn't matter. That is your culture. And then you show that to people that this is, if someone was to see us from outside, this is what they're going to see. Now, do we want this, or do we want to be seen as something better? And what's really going to work for us? Uh, Culture is something which is evolving.
Right.
It takes many years, a lifetime, sometimes to build on those things. Uh, whilst your core remains intact. And I'll give an example of one of the organizations that I worked with, the Taj Hotels. 100 years ago, Jamshedji Tata, when he founded the company, coined Atithi Devo Bhava.
Right.
Still is the core of the organization today. It hasn't changed in over 120 years. Okay. So your foundation remains the same, but your flexibility, your communication, the tuning, well, as frequent as it takes listening to people's feedback, and as long as it is coming from people and not coming from just one set of individuals.
Right. My final question a bit about the tech and the human interface at the floor of the organization. And we see a lot of tech interfaces. How do we keep the human element? We see, I mean, we are talking to each other through emails and messages and all. What will happen to the human interaction? How do you see the importance of having a one-on-one conversation? How do we bring it back also and balance it with the tech part of it?
Whilst it's one of the most difficult questions, I think I've been answering this question almost in every forum for the last 1 year. I'm still, trying to learn, but let me give you a very funny example. All right. And my experience of working in so many organizations, it may be a silly example, but I'm sure a lot of listeners may find it useful as just an approach to what one is trying to do. Today, a lot of people are chatting, on the phone. Either you've got your own tool as an organization, or it's WhatsApp, or whatever it is. When I joined this place, I realized that unlike many organizations who've moved away from this, there is a physical phone. All right, one of those phones that you pick on every desk. I have one in my office. Some contemporary workspaces I've seen actually don't have phones. We still have extensions, who's available or what extension, and so on. So we're in the process of, moving into our new offices, and really fancy offices. One of the questions was, do we want these phones in the new office? And after doing a lot of deep thinking, we said, yes, we do. All right, because sometimes even if you're not able to see each other, you pick up the phone and you listen to each other. That is far more powerful to just putting it on text. I'm personally sometimes very nervous about, especially the emojis or, whatever, because sometimes with the way they keep changing, difficult to understand the real true meaning of it.
Right.
And sometimes I think there's a difference between what you're really trying to communicate or what's being comprehended. So as frequent as possible, create opportunities for people to come together. You cannot do without technology today. It is a must. People, need to have access to a lot of things, on their own, but try and create opportunities where people can come together. For example, if it's lunchtime, okay, I personally, every place where I work, try and make sure that I'm there with the team having lunch. Those half an hour, whatever time it takes you to, have lunch, do that together and talk about everything but work. Okay. A lot of people I see, after work, go out for a quick walk, etc. Encourage that. I think some of these smaller things today, which used to happen a lot more earlier, need to be brought back, where we're able to get people together as much as possible, and use technology to your advantage. And I think from where I see it, really, uh, people are on the right track. The world is on the right track. Nobody is, denying the fact today that, we want technology to replace human intervention. No, that customer service is always going to remain important. Then whether you're serving the external customer or whether you're serving your internal customer, that's not going to go away.
Right. So it's not a versus, it is a collaboration, a handshake, which has to be firm and at the same time gentle. But thank you so much, Mr. Kuller, for joining us on this season three of BW People Presents HR Voices, which is going to premiere from next week. Thank you for joining us on this.
It's a pleasure, Rohil. Thank you so much for having me here.